Hey y'all, how's it going? I'm New Blotto, of course, and thanks for tuning into my review of Saba's third album, Few Good Things. Saba is a rapper and producer originating from Chicago, and he's also the co-founder of the collective Pivot Gang, who have been mentioned by other associated acts such as Kenny Beats, Jid, and No Name. I personally first heard his name through the release of his previous album, Care For Me, which was released in 2018. People gave this project high praise when it came out, and made several mentions of it since. I haven't gotten around to listening to his stuff myself, but since he has a new project out, I'm taking this opportunity to get into his music by using this album as an entryway. To start with, I wanted to commend Saba's variety of different flows and vocal deliveries he uses throughout the project, and made it seem like there are more people doing these performances. I'll get into how I felt his style wasn't made distinct for me when first listening, but I'll get into the themes that he discusses in this project first. Saba's main thematic approach on this record appears to be based on money and some detailed issues surrounding the lack of money, or what thoughts come up when you've gotten to a place where money isn't an issue. He also touches on reminiscing in the past, having tenacity to get after the bag, and other heavy topics surrounding the events that occurred as he grew up in Chicago. The second track is One Way or Every Nigga With a Budget, and Saba does well with describing the various ways he spends his cash and how it's different from how he used to think. The abundance of cash he now has makes him not check prices or not even think twice about certain purchases that he would make, as opposed to being too focused on the price of the item in the past. I'm a fan of the chorus given on here, but as for his delivery, it does feel a bit rushed to me, and if slowed down, his words could carry more weight. Another few tracks that dig into the theme of poverty are the tracks Fearmonger and the Circus Interlude. The Circus Interlude is a good addition to the track list and supports the album's themes. This interlude is a quick reflection for Saba as he details the things that he had or lack thereof in the past, and he brings up how he took things for granted back then and that he should remember these times as he lives through his present life. He also may be trying to recreate the same feeling he got at the time due to him not fully taking in the positive moments back then. There are also mention of how people in Chicago had to unfortunately get into the habit of saying be safe rather than goodbye due to the potential of the person dying in the area soon after the interaction. He uses pitched up vocals on here and has a very fast flow on here to make for a short and enjoyable interlude. On Fearmonger, Saba seems to be detailing the fears that him and a lot of other people have on going broke after getting into a good financial position. So fear drives him to keep making more and more money to get further away from that reality. This fearmonger could also be describing Saba as his fear of losing success could be spreading to others in his circle, or just by him refusing to go back to that lifestyle by any means necessary. I like the vocal inflections on the verses and the choruses along with the singing on the hook with Daoud as well. I'm not totally sure if Daoud is singing with Saba on the hook, but it's a small contribution to the track, and he does well with the time that he's given. He's also worth mentioning due to the production credits on a few songs on the record. Some other tracks that add to the narrative of the project are the track Still in 2012. These tracks seem to emphasize taking a look back on the past. For the track Still, I was excited to hear this track because I've been meaning to get into Smino, and I've been eager to listen to Black perform as I've been a fan of his work for a while. Each of these guys are reminiscing about the past and seeing what they're still doing from that time, almost as if they are stuck in this place. Saba seems to dive into his relationship at the time, and could be alluding to being stuck or held back in the relationship that he's in. As for Smino, he goes for a lot more wordplay on here, some clever bars that I'm a fan of as well. He's also able to add to the song's meaning by naming experiences from his past with a female that he hopes is still into him today, further reinforcing the stuck nature of all the performers on the track. I also like the flow that he takes at the end of his verse too, and he is also on the bridge of the track, and his performance there is an alright one with the wispy vocals. Saba is more pushed aside on this track alongside performances from Black and Smino, which takes away from the feeling like this is a Saba track, but I do enjoy the track overall and it's a good addition to the album. Some other tracks I'd like to mention that are among my favorites are the tracks Survivor's Guilt, Come My Way, Soldier, and If I Had a Dollar. I can also mention the soundscape of this album and how these tracks seem to do well with providing quality instrumentals overall. The track Survivor's Guilt featuring Herbo has a definite banger of a beat with some heavy hitting kicks and 808s and some cool drum patterns on here as well. Saba also gives a strong and bold performance on his verse and speaks on his feeling of guilt in a few parts of his life. One part being him finding success in music and gaining more money when the people in his hometown are still struggling in that regard, along with Saba feeling that survivor's guilt for those black folks in his hometown who either were killed due to police brutality or being incarcerated in prisons for long periods. While dealing with the weight of all this, Saba tries his best to move forward and get after it. I also think his geometry bars are pretty sick too. The chorus is dope as well, and it does sound like a 3-6 Mafia chant of sorts. His delivery and flow is pretty quick on here too, but I do think it's a lot more controlled compared to the flow on the end of the first track, Come My Way, and on the track One Way. Herbo's contribution to the track is a focused one and matches Saba's energy well. He also does well with adding to the track's narrative and speaks on how he used to live and how money helped improve his situation. The track If I Had a Dollar has to be one of the more dark instrumentals on the album for me. This track seamlessly transitions from Soldier, and I'd say the guitar loop on here with the dark chords being played is a super sick combination. The banging 808s and the pan vocal sample on here are welcome additions to the beat for me as well. Benjamin Earl Turner also gives a great performance too, as he adds on to the narrative of failure and having patience in the process towards success. The instrumental on the track Come My Way contains vocal samples in the background, and I like how it's used with the 808s and the guitar playing on here. The track also features one of my favorite hooks from Saba. His voice sounds great and fits well with the instrumental on here, and his verse is a solid one with the pronounced delivery, and he seems to be talking about the different ways that he can get money. The feature on this track, Krayzie Bone, adds to the narrative by stating his experience of getting after the bag and how it consumes most of his time. Krayzie Bone's vocal delivery fits in so well with this track's beat and with Saba's performances. Both artists perform well overall on the track, aside from the end of Saba's verse where it sounds like his words are being meshed together as he tries to use a faster flow, as mentioned before. As for a track's production that didn't do too much for me, has to be Stop That. Although this was the lead single for the project, I felt as though this is one of the more simple and boring beats on the record. As for Saba's vocal performances on the track, he has a solid one but doesn't do too much with his delivery on this one. Also, during the last verse of the track, his voice doesn't flow well for me as it just comes off like he's making attempts to trade bars with himself, and it kind of sounds like there's someone else there, but it's actually him, so it just sounds pretty choppy to me, I'd say. The beat is a minimal one with the standard hi-hat and drum pattern, and there is also some added ad-libs by Saba on the second verse and a very faint woodwind melody, I believe. The subject matter Saba speaks on is how people who are in his ear talking about record deals, rushing his art, or just simply getting in the way of his creative process. He acknowledges that he's come a long way and how people should recognize this within him at this point. Lastly, he spends the second verse further envisioning his preferred future of generational wealth and getting even more money for his family to prosper. I also have to mention the track A Simpler Time due to the beat on here. Oh yeah, I've been wanting to talk about this track since the first time I heard it. What immediately caught my attention from this track upon first listen are the sporadically played drum patterns and the off-kilter 808s. This reminded me of what Baby Keem was doing on the track Range Brothers from his project. But on Saba's end, this is more of a stripped down version to match the album's vibe. I was definitely put off by this approach at first, but it surely grew on me after a few listens, and Saba's vocal performances on the chorus and his verses were a good listen as well. I also like how the album ends with the sunny and soothing title track Few Good Things. On this track, Saba teams up with Black Thought to demonstrate some of his best rapping on the album so far. As for the subject matter goes, they bring up the majority of topics spoken on previously and about the few good things they need in life compared to what they think they needed in the past. They also use this long runtime to wrap up the album as Saba discusses his hard work up until the success that he's reached, the people that didn't get to see him make it, the hardships of him living in an area with constant gang violence that led to those living there feeling unsafe, and in the last verse on how money is a constant factor in his life even after he's made more than he has ever had before. Black Thought does a great job of talking about his mother on his verse and describing the kind of person she was and the energy she gave off to others in a very detailed manner. He does great with his rhyme schemes and fits in well with the track. Furthermore, the writing and assistance from Eryn, Owl, and Kane helps Saba better flesh out the details of the track. As for Black Thought, I just wish his voice was mixed a bit better with the beat, as it sounds like the beat takes over his vocal performances just a little bit for me. My other one gripe with the song is the long gap of almost silence right after Black Thought's verse. There are some bird sound samples, but the gap throws off the groove of the track for me. Other than that, I really enjoyed this track and I think it's a great way to end his album. Overall, I'd say that I enjoyed listening to the album Few Good Things by Saba these past few weeks, and have come to be somewhat familiar with his style on this project. Even though he has room to grow, particularly with getting all his different vocal deliveries and styles to sound a bit more cohesive and distinct to him, I do like his ability to rhyme, flow, storytell, and to make or choose the most fitting beats he can on this project. Most of the feature artists fit pretty well on each track mentioned, aside from Mereba's verse on the track A Simpler Time that left me feeling more so indifferent. Saba surely demonstrates his talent on the album, and I'm looking forward to going back to his previous music and what's to come in the future. I'm giving this album a strong 8 out of 10.